Yeah, and welcome to another lesson. I am Brett Papa, and today is the part deux, or sequel, to mastering the major pentatonic. Now we gotta do its counterpart, the minor pentatonic, and it's kind of the same thing, you know? We're gonna examine a chord progression and throw in a couple notes, because we can, that are outside of the pentatonic scale, but it's really just showing you how to play the changes and focus on the most important things when soloing, which is targeting the chord tones. All right, if you're new here, welcome. We are so glad you are here. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when the new videos come out. Tons of videos are coming out all the time. And also a lot of the questions that people commonly ask me to do videos on, there usually is a video that I've done on that topic already, but if not, feel free to comment in the comment section down below and ask questions or things that you might want to see. And then also check out brettpapa.com. Down below, that funds this whole project. I would suggest the membership, over 700 videos strong and counting. Okay, so it's really, you know, soloing's interesting. Took me 30 something years to find out that it's not rocket science at all. And if somebody would have told me right off the bat, just look at the chords, it would have saved me like years of, what am I doing wrong? So let's examine this. I'm playing out of B minor pentatonic. Okay, trusty old B minor pentatonic position 1 and 2 and 5 is basically what I was playing that whole time. 2 and 5, just the top part. Okay, so a majority of the song was basically played off of a B minor chord. Or so first thing we want to do is, since it's kind of vamping over that B minor chord, is just really pay attention to this chord shape. Right? I mean, and if you notice in this pentatonic scale, I mean, that's a chord tone, that's a chord tone, here, 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 here. You almost can't go wrong here. Right? So you got your root of the chord, the third of the chord. That's the same here. Two super powerful notes, right? Right here's the third. Now, one of the things that you really need to pay attention to is that a lot of these notes, like I just showed you, they repeat themselves. Always remember the chord tones, and second, always remember where the octaves are, okay? Now, a lot of what you see is a big, long riff with all these notes, you know, played all over the place, all over the neck. It's actually just the same notes played in a different spot. So if you start to be able to see the chords in your scale shapes, not only that, but be able to see the octaves, right? So if I'm like here on my root, I'm like, oh, I got a root right here. Or here. Okay, so that is a good octave right there. But that also goes to here. So when I'm in position 2, the very fact that I did that lick like that, I went to the root of the B minor chord, the third of the chord, and then back to the root. And I played that octave. Now, if I would have done that lick, right? If I do something like that, I just played the whole chord, but it sounds like a blues lick. Right, so I'd use the blues note. You're gonna see me do this all the time. It's called stacking. And I really started to pay attention to it when I started learning David Gilmour solos. He's one of my favorite blues rock guitar soloists. I mean, just perfection when it comes to melodic blues rock phrasing. Hendrix too, but Gilmour's where I really started to pay attention to the kind of, I call it stacking, right? So that's gonna be 9, 9, back to 9, and then I'm gonna go to the front part of the chord now, right? So remember our chord shape. 3rd of the chord, 5th of the chord, 3rd, back to the root. So that's really just an elaborate way of playing the chord. It's actually an arpeggio, right? Right, that right there in and of itself is an arpeggio, not too difficult. And it sounds great over the chord because you just played every chord tone, right? So also keep in mind that we can bend into those chord tones. When I'm doing that, I'm bending to this note right here. Now, if we're thinking about this shape right here, if I wanted to check my bend on this note, I would hit this note right here. That's when we can think to ourselves, oh, when I bend this note right here, I'm bending into the 5th of my 1 chord. Okay, so when I bend this note right here, if I think about checking that bend, I would check it with this note right here, right? It's hard to do because this guitar is floating, so it's not going to sound right. But that says to myself, oh, there's my root, so I'm bending to the root right here. So a lick like that, root, root, 5th, right? I'm bending into the 5th again. 3rd, 5th, 3rd, root. Okay, so this shape, if we do octaves, and I concentrate on these lower tones, right? To the 5th of my chord, root, 3rd. So that's that shape right there. Looks like a D minor chord. This is the Stevie Ray position, and this is the Stevie Ray lick and why it always works. If I can play it right. Right? You're really hammering in the 1 chord. So when you play out of this shape right here, you're really hammering over You're really hammering the notes of that B minor chord, okay? Now when you bend this note up here, you're bending into the B minor chord up here. Right, so when you're in position 2, pay attention to where the notes are. If you want to do a huge bend, full Gilmour bend, a step and a half, you could bend into that 3rd of this B minor chord up here. Okay? Okay, so that is the 1 chord. Now, as you saw, I switched to this right here. I don't know what this chord would be called. It's a cool chord. It's called like a 80s smoky blues bar chord. Okay, so when I would go down to that, I can remember if you see a note within your chord, it's a legal hit. Even if it's out of a pentatonic shape, right? This gets us into the modes. But if there's a note in your chord that's not in your pentatonic scale, for you pentatonic players out there, it's a legit note. And chances are, if you hit that note, it's gonna add a lot of flair, taste, and as my buddy Rolby Calvo would say, modality. It'll evoke the flavors of the modes. Robbie's the modal master. If you check out down below, I'll leave some examples of the great Rolby Calvo. But anyways, modes can be as simple as that. It's just paying attention to the chord shapes themselves, right? And then how you put that into your licks. Maybe we use a standard framework like the minor pentatonic scale in this instance, but as we know, that note isn't in it, but since it's in this chord, it's totally legit. The other two chords that I hit would be this D and this E. Now I could stick to these shapes and just pay attention to this side of the chord. It's got all my notes in it. So, right? A lick that simple really says D chord. I'm hitting the root and the fifth of that chord. Right? So would hit, and I'm still in pentatonic shape 1, but I'm using this side of it again. It's almost the exact same notes as my minor chord, right? A lot of the same notes. And then the same thing when this E comes up, I can do the same thing. If I wanted to make it a more kind of Dorian sounding, I can make that E major chord. Now, a way to kind of mask it so you're not just playing the notes of the chords themselves, right? This is where the scales come in. You can play around the note, and the scales are a great way to achieve that goal. Number 1, for sure, like, as sure as rain on a, well, I shouldn't say rain on a cloudy day, because, you know how that can go, but as sure as you're gonna ski on snow in the mountains, the chords are what you want to pay attention to first. Number 1, the scale is the chairlift to the top of the mountain. Yes. I was like, how am I going to tie this all together so it makes sense? So, chords are the snow, the scales are the chairlift up the mountain or around the mountain. You know, maybe you're too scared and you need to go back down the mountain to get to a more like less challenging run. You can do that too. No one's gonna shame you. Well, they might these days, but I won't shame you. So a lot of times when you hear people do stuff like that, those kind of licks, you can really hammer like that E, right, with a double stop. Because if you think about that chord, right? Okay, so for those other chords, check this out, right? So we got this for our 1 chord, but as we hit this chord, think of those octaves again, right? We got and then up a whole step for the next chord, right? So we got. So again, this spot works great. Now that gets us back to our 1, right? And then now maybe I come back down to this lower octave. Now this approach, this is a very basic kind of a chord progression. Yeah, I threw kind of a, esoteric chord in there. I don't even know what it's called. If you guys tell me what this chord is called. Oh, it's one of my favorite chords ever. I mean, the 80s, like Tequila Sunrise soundtrack of it all, or Lethal Weapon. This is a very Lethal Weapon 2 chord, like when Mel Gibson's character's like, his chick just got killed, it's like, and he's like, just like, should I go back to drinking and craziness? Something like that. That's what happens in my mind. Anyway, so if it's not a 1-4-5, just do this for any kind of a chord progression, right? If you check out the major counterpart video I did to this video, same kind of thing, right? You can take a typical chord progression and just really pay attention to where the chords fall. Try to be able to know, how to play every chord within like a 5 fret span. So every chord in your progression, make that a goal. Like if we had like 15 goals as a guitar player, that would be in the top 3 for sure. Find out where you can play a whole chord progression and what chord shapes you need to use to be able to hit your whole chord progression within a 5 fret span. When you can do that, then you can take scale shape, like pentatonic shapes, by pentatonic shape and analyze, okay, here's the chord progression in these 5. All right, sweet, that works with position 1. Here's the 5 in this. All right, sweet, that works with position 2, like we did, right? So, position 1. Okay, definitely works there. I have the D chord. So you can, it doesn't have to be a whole chord. You can think of like 3 notes, right? That covers the E. Position 2, here's that B minor chord. Right, then I got my D and my E. Sweet. Now, if you just keep moving up the scale, like where would it be next? You're here, you got, right? So here's your B minor chord, your D chord, your E chord. So learn how to play in all those shapes, right? And so that would be more of the position 4, right? Think of that. So it's the same thing. Here's that B minor, D, E, back to the 1. So it's all about hammering those chord tones. That's how you master the pentatonic scale. Now, mastering the scale can take a lifetime, right? There's all these rock gods out there and blues legends out there that still are working on it every day. So do you really ever completely master it? No, but you can get really good at it and you can get better at it really fast if you just pay attention to where those chords are. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching another video. If you like this video, by all means, share it far and wide because sharing is caring. You guys are awesome. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. And also, again, BrettPapa.com supports all of these free videos. Check out the membership. It's growing all the time. Plus, if you get the membership, you also get 25% on all of my collab courses I do with like Robbie and Corey and Jeff and a bunch of other peeps are coming on board. So check out the membership or anything at BrettPapa.com. Helps support all of the free videos here. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for the continued support. We'll catch you next time.